Yo, what's up YouTube? How you doing? It's your boy Zenith, and today I've got a brand new mini-series coming your way. This mini-series is going to be Fantasy Premier League Football. Fantasy Premier League Football is a season-long game where you need to pick a squad of 15 players with a £100 million budget. Players vary in price depending on how well they've done in previous seasons and how likely they are to score you points. Points can be scored in a number of different ways, from playing to scoring, to assisting, to keeping clean sheets, as well as losing points for getting booked, being sent off, and even actually saving penalties will get you points as well. So there's lots of different ways to get points in this game, and you really do have to think about it. The £100 million budget really makes you tinker with your team to find that perfect balance of great players that are going to get you big points and the lesser known players that keep you ticking over throughout the season. You have to pick 2 goalkeepers, 5 defenders, 5 midfielders and 3 strikers. Each week you must start a minimum of 3 defenders, a minimum of 2 midfielders and a minimum of 1 striker. Each week you can transfer players in and out of your team. However, if you make more than 1 transfer a week, this will also cost you additional points. Throughout the game you also get a captain. Now whatever your captain scores for that week will double your points as well, and you can choose a vice captain just in case your captain doesn't play each week. You must settle your team 90 minutes before the first game of the week, and these can be found on the website just underneath your team selection. Every week I'm going to upload my team for the week. I'm going to tell you what transfers I plan on making and why, and I'm also going to review the week that's just happened and who else I thought had done better than expected, and maybe some upsets if I've made a captain choice and they've got sent off or they've just not performed as well as I thought. This is a lot more interactive than you think as well, so you guys can join the mini league that I've started. There is a code on screen and there's also a link in the description below if you want to get involved. What I'm going to do each week as well is I'm going to shout out the highest point scorers each week and who's flying up the table. But if you beat me badly, there's going to be issues as well, because I don't like to lose. I do take this seriously. Let's jump straight into it, and where else will we go other than the goalkeepers to start with? So I'm a believer of cheap goalkeepers. If you look at the past season's best performing goalkeepers, last year it was Martinez of Aston Villa. He was a £4.5 million goalkeeper and he actually finished with the most points. Here I don't want players like Edison and Alisson. They're 6 million a go, and whilst they get a good amount of points, the extra 1.5 million that they cost over the likes of people like Martinez last season or Sanchez for Brighton this season, it's not enough points different for 1.5 million of a cost. So I'm going to start off with Sanchez and Guaita. That's Brighton and Crystal Palace, and I'll probably rotate these across the season, and at 4.5 million you can't really go too wrong. Sanchez kept 10 clean sheets last season in 27 games, so he still missed 11 games of the season and managed to maintain 10 clean sheets, which isn't too bad, and Brighton are known for being defensively sound and not conceding too many goals if they can help it. On the other hand, when you look at Guaita, he played 37 games last season and got 8 clean sheets, so the record isn't as good as what we see from Sanchez, but the fact that he's more or less a guaranteed starter for Crystal Palace reassures me, and he's a good one to rotate in when Brighton do get those more difficult fixtures such as Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, United. Moving on swiftly from goalkeepers, as they're not the most glamorous of positions, we're going to go into defenders. Now there's a couple of different terminologies you might hear around these players, from premiums to budget options, and then obviously you've just got your standard pricing. Your budget options or your bench fodder are around the 4 million price, going up to the mid-range 5 to 5 million, and then 6 million onwards is what we kind of consider your premiums. So I don't have any premiums this season. I've got some mid-range and some budget players, so let's have a look at them and talk about each of them really quickly. We're going to start off with Lucas Digne. Lucas Digne is a key part of Everton's backline. Not only does he feature in nearly every game, he's on their free kicks, which are indirect, as well as their corners. Now this opens up the opportunity to assists. He crosses the ball in and potentially another one of his teammates might score. Pretty simple stuff. Last season he picked up 9 assists and he also got 9 clean sheets. Now when it comes down to the assists, he was only bested by Aaron Cresswell of West Ham, and he came joint second with Soufal of West Ham as well. So he's the second most assisting defender of last season. So for me he has to be in there. Also, if you look at their opening fixtures, where they play teams such as Southampton, Leeds, Brighton, Burnley and Aston Villa, this is a good opportunity for him to get some assists and maybe even pinch a goal himself as he pushes forward. The next player we're going to talk about is Luke Shaw. He had a fantastic Euros and is now an integral part of the Manchester United back line since Jose Mourinho's moved on. He features 32 times for the Red Devils last season, amounting 1 goal and 5 assists. On top of this, they managed to keep 10 clean sheets, and when you think about the fact they're reinforcing their backline with Rafael Varane, this clean sheet opportunity may only increase. I also think that playing under Gareth in the Euros, we saw his attacking potential a lot more, and I don't doubt that Luke may be able to get a few more assists under his belt this season. What I will say is, whilst their season starts quite nicely with opponents such as Leeds, Southampton, Wolves and Newcastle, in game week 5 their fixtures start to take a turn for the worse. So you may want to lay off the United assets until game week 14, where they have a clear run and not a single fixture 4 or 5 difficulty rated match until game week 28. My next choice, I have already mentioned him since we started speaking, is the joint second best assisting defender of last season, and that is Vladimir Soufal of West Ham. He played fantastic for us last year, and I think he can continue that form going into this season. Played well for Czech Republic at the Euros too, and he doesn't have the most awful fixture start in the new season either. So expect big things out of this £5 million rated defender. Finally, we have my rotation players that are coming into consideration. We've got Danny Rose of Watford and Tsimikas of Liverpool. If I've said that wrong, roast me in the comments. I knew it was going to be a struggle. With Robertson's injury, Tsimikas is coming in at £4 million, is a natural left-footed left-back player. So I think he's going to cover Robertson for the first couple of games whilst Robertson recovers from his injury. So it's a cheap way into a Liverpool back line. At £4 million, it's a bit of a bargain. And considering they're playing Norwich and Burnley in their first 2 games, I'm not too worried about Liverpool conceding. Danny Rose has proven before that he does have talent, and he needs to bring all of that to the fore of his game at Watford. They're going to be in for a tough season, but I think this attacking left back could potentially get some returns, and they don't have the worst start to the season either. I will be monitoring his progress closely. Now's the time for a bit of the meaty conversation. We're going towards the midfielders. This is where your big hitters are going to be, and again there are premium, budget and standard options just like there are in defence, but it works a bit differently. For me, I think your premium options here kind of go from 9.5 million upwards for midfielders, and then your budget options are going to be 4.5 to maybe 6 million, and then your standard range is going to be the 6 to 9 million. I'm going to start off talking about Mohamed Salah. Salah has scored over 230 points in every Premier League season for the past 4 seasons. That is an insane feat. It makes him a more or less certain captain choice. No matter who he plays, he can score goals. So he has to be in your team, in my opinion. He scored on the opening day of every Premier League season as well, which is worth bearing in mind. Combining that with 6 assists also. And that's an off season. So let's see what he can do this season as Liverpool try and refine their form and mount a title challenge. I'm a big believer of 2 premium midfielders, and that's why my second one at the moment is Bruno Fernandez, especially whilst Kevin De Bruyne has his injury. Now, a lot of people give Bruno a lot of hate for being on penalties, but when it comes to Fantasy Premier League, that's exactly what you want. If Man U get a penalty, and they get a fair few, I want to know that I've got their penalty taker in my team. Bruno picked up 18 goals last season, combining that with 14 assists. He hit 244 points and was the highest scoring player in fantasy football last year, beating Harry Kane by 2 points. When you think about the start of the season he's got as well, with Southampton, Leeds, Wolves coming up, you don't really want to leave him out. Like I said, their fixtures do take a bit of a tricky turn, and that's where you can easily rotate him out and bring in Kevin De Bruyne of City for a nice quick swap. Now, coming into the mid-price range for midfielders, this player I was tinkering with before he made a big money summer transfer move. Jack Grievis. I mean, De Bruyne's injured at the moment. Foden's injured at the moment. They don't have a striker other than Gabriel Jesus, and I don't believe that Pep has enough faith in him to get 25 plus goals in the season. So I think you're probably going to see Sterling down the middle, Mahrez on one wing, and that opens up the ability for Jack Grealish to be out wide on the left, or even as a playmaker with Foden and De Bruyne missing. At 8 million in a free-flowing attacking team like City, I think you'd be crazy not to pick up this bargain buy. We know he can perform, we know he can create chances. He got 6 goals and 12 assists at Villa last season, and I think he'll do even better this season at City. Now, my next 2 players are towards the cheaper end, but not necessarily what I would call budget options, as they both come in at 6 million. We're going to start off by talking about Jack Harrison. He picked up 8 goals and 10 assists last season, for a Leeds team that love playing attacking, free-flowing football. And I think he can only improve on this year, or at least match last season's performance. And at 6 million to get 160 points, I think that's quite a good little price. I'm happy to keep him in my team, so let's see how he does. Now, the player that I've left in midfield to talk about last is a bit of a punt. Said Benrahma. I think he's got a lot of talent. He struggled to get his first goal for us last season, and he got 6 assists. Now, with Jesse Lingard leaving and not being replaced, I think this is his time to shine. This is the season where he needs to step up now. He's got his feet wet, and he needs to show us what he can really do. Lanzini's just had a little one, and I think he's going to be a bit more settled now. He's back from injury, so I'd like to see Fornals, Benrahma and Lanzini push forward and support Antonio, creating opportunities and chipping in with goals. And I think Benrahma could be the man for us this season. Finally, we're onto the front line. This is where the goals should come in. But for me personally, I still think the points come from the middle of the park. Now, I'd love Harry Kane up front, but at 12.5 million, it's a bit of a risk, especially whether we're not sure whether he's going to stay at Spurs or if he's going to stay at City. But he is someone I probably would like in my team at some point in the season. He was the second highest scoring player of the entire game last season. So I'm feeling a bit nervous not having him in there. I'm going to start off with Danny Ings. He's just made a big move from Southampton to Villa, and he's proved that he can do it in the Premier League. That's why he's rated at 8 million. Not too expensive, but there's a reason that he's not cheap, and you've got to pay a bit of change for him. Picked up 22 goals in the 19-20 season, and he got 12 goals and 4 assists last season for a Southampton side that didn't exactly set the place on fire. He's moving to an Aston Villa side that have got ambitions, have made good signing with the Jack Grealish money, with Leon Bailey coming in, Buendia coming in from Norwich as well. This is a man who can get goals. If he can stay fit, he can get goals in an attacking Villa side. So keep an eye on this guy, because I think he's going to get some points. Opening games of the season, he's got Watford, Newcastle and Brentford. And if you haven't seen my Premier League prediction video, which will be links at the end of this video, you see I put all 5 of those teams to finish in the bottom 5 of the table. So there's goals aplenty at the start of the season. After the international break in September, his fixtures do take a turn for the worse. He's got 4 games in a row that all have a 4 fixture difficulty rating. So that's going to be a bit tough. But at 8 million, there are plenty of options of players you can swap him out for. Patrick Bamford, Calvert-Lewin, Callum Wilson, Kelechi Iheanacho. All of these players you can swap him out for of a quick transfer. You don't need to make multiple to kind of cover off those fixtures. But if he's banging form and he's scoring goals, you might even want to ride him out through the difficult fixtures, because sometimes form over fixtures is the way to go in Fantasy Premier League. Now my next choice is Mikel Antonio. He comes in at 7.5 million, so he's a little bit cheaper than Ings, but he scored 10 goals in both of his last 2 seasons playing for us. Also combining that with 5 assists last season. And it's worth bearing in mind, he hasn't actually played a 30-game season for us in the past 2 seasons. So to get 10 goals back-to-back for a mid-table club, that's not bad going. And at 7.5 million, I think he can keep up this form and he's worth the money. And my last striking position goes to Ivan Toney. He picked up 31 goals in the Championship for Brentford last season. A lot of people are talking about him. A lot of people are raving about him. And I think if Brentford do anything in the Premier League this season, it's going to go through this man. So at 6.5 mil, he's in. And I want to see what he can do. So the only thing left to do now, guys, is tell you my starting 11 for game week 1. We've got Sanchez in goal. And I've picked him over Gaeta because I believe Chelsea are more likely to score than Burnley. That's a bit of a no-brainer for me. We're then going with Soufal, Digne, Shaw and Tsimikas as the back line. I think all of these guys can potentially get returns. Shaw's playing at home against Leeds, so there's a clean sheet potential attacking returns as United go forward. Digne's playing the Southampton side that I don't have tipped to do well. I actually have them to go down. Sorry. And then we've got Soufal as well against a potentially defensively frail Newcastle. And Tsimikas is coming in for a Norwich team that are playing one of the best teams in England. So I think there's guaranteed points there. Coming into midfield, captain has got to be Salah. He scored in the opening day of the last 3 Premier League seasons for Liverpool. And I think he'll continue that fine form against Norwich. And I think it's going to be more than one. I think this could be a bit of a landslide game for Liverpool. Welcome back to the Premier League, Norwich. Next is Fernandez, who's at home against Leeds. Bit of a no-brainer. And then we've got Benrahma and Grealish. I picked Grealish over Harrison, as I think Grealish is more likely to do damage to Spurs than what Harrison is to do to Manchester United. Up top, we're going with Ings and Antonio, as I think they're both going to pick up more points than Danny Rose, who's got Aston Villa. And of course, I think that because I think Ings is going to score against Rose. And I think Antonio's going to do better against Newcastle than what Tony's going to do against Arsenal. And if you think your team can beat mine, put your money where your mouth is, so to speak. Join the league. It doesn't actually cost anything, but the sayings put your money where your mouth is. You know what I'm on about. The link's in the description below. The code's on the screen right now. Join the league. Tell me how you do. Follow the journey. Get involved with me. Participate. I want to see how well you do. If you are coming along for the ride, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like this video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. Until next time, take care.